Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cricket 360. Once again, I have Joydeep Mukherjee, a very well-established cricketer, administrator, coach, and we're going to be talking about the day two of the Cape Town Test match. The match, obviously, as we discussed, is very interestingly poised. We spoke last night that how important the first hour is going to be. Obviously, the batting could have been much better. Kohli was the lone warrior, so to speak. He had a little bit of support from Pujara, from Pant for a while. Obviously, the very last pair also resisted for 30 balls. But at the end of the day, South Africa would be very happy with, 223. Joydeep, welcome to the show. Maybe it'll be great if you could take us through your views on what needs to happen in the first hour from both camps. If you were a South African side, what's the approach going to be? Obviously, from the Indian side, what should the bowling strategy focus on?
Thanks, Prantik. Always a pleasure being here with you. I'll start with South Africa first. They would have taken a cue of how to bat from Virat Kohli. And this innings of Virat Kohli's had more of discipline in it than class and quality, because that was the need for the hour. And that's something that can be replicated easier. When I am a South African batsman standing in the slips at gully, at short leg, at mid-off, for me to replicate discipline is easier than to replicate Virat Kohli's class. There'll be some innings where it'll be oozing class, and you can't play that shot, those shots, you can't hit those balls to the parts of the ground that he is, because that's the quality of Virat Kohli. But this innings was a slightly different one. This innings was more about discipline. He had made mistakes in one test match, learned from it, adjusted to the wicket. And sometimes, even in my playing days, some of the best lessons I got how to play on a pitch is by just seeing the successful batsman on in that very game. And that could be anybody. So that's a cue that the South African batsmen, and they'll be happy about it, because that's something that comes with the team. South African team, New Zealand team, they have a lot of discipline. They're not very big, not a huge talented lot, especially the New Zealanders, barring one or two. Same with the South African, especially this South African lot is not immensely talented, not the Jack Callises, the Gary Kirsten, the Herschel Gibbs, who can take the game away from you. They are more grinders. So they will know how to grind on this pitch. So that will be their mantra. They will not try to give easy wickets initially. Wait for the ball to become softer so that their middle order, late order can come and play some shots, because this will be all about positioning. It's like day two of a golf tournament. Day two is positioning, where you want to be at the end of day two, where you want to be at the end of day three, how many runs you want to be. So all this plan will be in place. From India's point of view, just the opposite. You don't want the others to get into the game, the opponents to get into the game at all. You want, with the rock hard ball that you have, with three frontline seamers and the fourth seamer, who is very, very adept for these conditions, to come and straight away create an impact.
That's some very pragmatic advice that, when you're standing in the slips gully point, you're probably observing, and it's obviously much easier to replicate Kohli's discipline than the talent or the class that he uses. And from that perspective, I mean, we got to bear in mind, you mentioned there are no big stars yet, and their biggest star, the captain Elgar, is back to the pavilion thanks to some splendid bowling from Bumrah. We'll talk about his bowling. But from the current lineup, I mean, if I'm the Indian camp, I'm probably a bit more worried with what a Peterson would do. I mean, his balance, his defensive technique, is obviously the whole element of grit that you spoke about. I think that's something that would worry me. At the same time, I think there's another school of thought which says on low scoring conditions, low scoring, matches like these, a quick 40, 50, 60 from a Bavuma or a Rassi could be equally, or even a Marco at the fag end could be very, very useful. So would you, if you're in the South African camp, would the advice for the batsmen be, guys, go there, be attacking just the way you did on day 5 or day 4 of the last day of the test match, attack rather than be scratchy and be gritty? How would you kind of plan that innings if you're on the South African camp?
That will really depend on the strengths and the weaknesses of a player. So there will be some who can take the fight to the opposition. There will some that will grind you. If you ask a Pujara or Rahane to be overly aggressive, won't happen. If you ask a Pant or a KL Rahul to really, slow it down and sort of, make sure that you get the shine of the ball, that's not going to happen with them. So it's important that you give the responsibility that they're capable of carrying out. You can always tell a Bavuma to step it up once he feels it's right. Sometimes it's from ball 1, sometimes it's from ball 30, sometimes it's ball 70, sometimes it doesn't come at all. So it's only you get to know when you get inside the pitch what sort of rhythm you're in. On the other hand, the Indians, what they'll be worried about, what's playing on their mind the most is they don't want this pitch to ease out. They want this pitch
Right.
to play as it was playing, to be able to have the same effect the bowlers had. The Indian bowling attack is just as competent, if not more. So, but if the pitch eases out, then that's not a level playing field. That's something they would want to make sure that they have the same conditions as the South Africans had yesterday.
And just taking a leaf from what you just said, that if you mentioned the batsmen would have been looking at Kohli and learning. Likewise, I presume our bowlers would be looking at what Rabada did and what Ngidi did. I mean, so I think I guess one is the element of bounce. I think that could come in handy. You obviously mentioned day two, day three could ease out a bit over time, but I think the first 1 or 2 hours is going to be very critical. So as a bowling unit, would the focus be, hey guys, let's stick to your strengths of seam or hitting the deck or swing, if at all, a little bit? Or would you rather change your approach and try and emulate what has worked for the South African side? What's the equivalent of being able to imitate or kind of take a leaf out of what South Africa did and what worked for them?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Bantik. It's easier for the batters to replicate a Virat Kohli, but it's difficult for the bowling unit to replicate the height and the bounce, because that's something when a ball is released at 140 from a different height, even if it's an inch lower, it makes a huge difference. So when I go and play forward to a ball from a Shami or Umesh Yadav, but the moment that is somebody like a Rabada or a Jansen, I know that ball's going to be about 6 to 8 inches higher, and then I'm adjusting to that. So that's not something I'm used to. So height of a bowler makes a huge difference, especially on wickets like this, because a ball that I'm comfortably playing forward to a Shami, I cannot play that comfortably. My foot doesn't go out that much, then it goes out half the of what it should, and that's where the problems start. When the foot doesn't go out as much as it should, then I'm playing playing the ball on the half of the swing. My foot hasn't gone on top of the ball, so I'm neither here nor there. So, which is the reason why the taller bowlers and such wickets, because there is space in the wicket, there is bounce in the wicket, but the bounce becomes almost unplayable, for lack of a better word, almost becomes unscorable, is probably the
Right.
right word. So,
Yeah.
Glenn McGrath, so they stifle you down. I mean, on a wicket like this, Glenn McGrath might be 17 overs, 34-5, but not 5 overs, 17 overs, 19 overs, three spells, but he'll give you nothing, and he'll absolutely stifle you down.
Yeah, you mentioned about this yesterday that on this same pitch, a James Anderson, a McGrath could stifle you, choke you, and your hand or your leg just moves. You probably don't find scoring opportunities, and it obviously impacts the mind as well. Let's quickly see what Anand Vasu has
And
to say
also,
from the.
Prantik, on this, they give
Yes.
nothing. They give you nothing away. You can't even play a ball to mid on. Yesterday, a lot of the South African bowlers, they were clipped to mid wicket, square leg. A
Yeah.
Pujara player to square leg is unthinkable, especially on a first day of a test match. That just goes to show that we spoke about this yesterday. That they got greedy yesterday. They wanted to. So, so the biomechanics are such that when you bowl on off stump, you can get that swing. Moment you get to middle stump, because you release your hand position slightly goes there, that's when the swing is gone. So you actually wanted to go like that and then go, but that only happens in the movies. So that's not happen. That's when you start leaking runs. That's what McGrath knew. That's what Glenn McGrath knew. That's what Jimmy Anderson knows. That I cannot. I have to be here. It's here. It's here. The moment you go half an inch onto middle stump, the good players will clip you, but they stayed there, they stayed patient. Sometimes, even in such conditions, it took them maybe 70, 80 overs to bowl a team out. But in the 80 overs, they gave 150, 160 away. So it's not that they got a wicket every over, but they give you nothing away.
And in that same vein, I mean, looking at the Indian bowlers, obviously these guys have picked hundreds of wickets in the last few years in overseas conditions. They've won us series and matches. But would you reckon that someone like a Shami is likely to be more disciplined than a Bumrah? Bumrah sometimes has strayed down the leg, has leaked a bit of runs. Of course, yesterday was phenomenal. He's still not given a single run. Umesh could bounce, and on maybe the South Africans are used to kind of playing that sort of pace and bounce. Would you kind of rely on Shami to be the more disciplined of the lot, or are all three still not? None of these guys is not yet at the league of the Andersons and the McGraths.
No, I think it's also on form. I think Sami is in tremendous form. And just like in batting, you have bowling form as well. It's really coming out of the hand nicely. He's in good rhythm. Physically, he's in great shape. So, just seeing the rhythm of Shami, who I've seen very closely for many years, even before he played for the state. I've seen him. Rhythm has been his biggest forte. When he's running in well, he's always bowling well. And everything falls in place because his loading, his release is naturally so good that if the start is good, everything ends up being good. That cannot be said for everybody else because they have other issues. Once they go to bowl, the loading, the release, the wrist position, they sometimes go awry. But in Shami's case, if he's running well, everything else sort of falls in place. A. B. So I'm expecting Sami to be on the money. Umesh is the one who's often in the past has leaked some runs, but he's a wicket taker. So you don't mind somebody bowling a 6 over spell, giving 26 away, picking up 2 wickets. But if he's getting 26, 30 and not picking up wickets, that's a problem. And you
Right.
also want him to bowl. And because you've got 4 fast bowlers, you want to give them short burst spells and you want them to go flat out. You want wickets right now. You don't want them to do any contained bowling. That can happen with 3 seamers. With 4 seamers, that's Shardul's job. The other 3 frontline seamers are here to get wickets. The third seamer will come and bail. The fourth seamer will come and bail you out. Ashwini will come and bail you out for some some tidy overs. But as far as wicket taking is concerned, because the ball as we go is going to get softer, and you want your 3 frontline fast bowlers to dent into them before that happens.
Fair enough. A fun fact for our viewers, today is the birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda. And since we're talking of Shami, it so happens that both of them used to play for the same club and open bowling for the same club. I'm sure Joydipta knows more about that. We'll quickly come back
Absolutely.
with some anecdotes on that and we'll come discuss about India's bowling. But let's listen to what Anand Vasu, our correspondent on the ground, has to say about today's day of play.
Hello and welcome to the second day of this deciding test match at beautiful Newlands. It's a bright, sunny day. There isn't a cloud in sight. Perfect batting conditions for South Africa and not such good news for India. Once again, India's batsmen couldn't score enough, 223 runs, thanks to that fantastic innings of 79 from Kohli. But again, the bowlers have to bail their team out. They must be wondering when they're ever going to get a score that they can actually defend. Something that can give them a fighting chance of getting the game together. It wasn't to be today, and again, Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Shami, these are the guys to look out for. South Africa will know that they need a lead of 70, perhaps 100, and the game is pretty much in the bag.
Thank you, Anand, for giving us that perspective from on the ground. Joydipta, let's maybe talk about Shami. Obviously, I've seen him from close quarters. I mean, maybe just give us a snippet of his journey, because obviously he comes from Uttar Pradesh. What was the difference in the Bengal cricketing system, or what changed for him? Is it just the environment, the coaching, or the opportunities that he got? What changed that took him from where he was to being a world-class performer?
So, the club cricket in West Bengal actually allures a lot of these young players to come and play. Firstly, it's a great system that Cricket Association of Bengal has in place. The clubs are in very good shape. They are monetarily looked after. So there is a career you can have in spite of you not playing first-class cricket. So when Shami first came in, a very young boy, played at Town Club, and Debu Dash, who's been with Town Club for a long time, right now the Joint Secretary of CAB, he stayed with him at home. Initially stayed at the tent, which can be one hell of a task. Then went to Debuda's house. Once Debuda saw him bowl, I said, okay, you come and stay with me, because he knew this guy was special. So Debuda was smart. So stayed with him for a few seasons. But initially, when we saw him straight away, we knew that he was a natural. And the best thing that the Bengal coaching staff at that point in time didn't do much of coaching with him. Often, when you suddenly find a talent out of nowhere, there are too many people. So we made sure that we protected him from all that. And the only coaching he got was from the best. So somebody at the NCA, somebody who's a bowling coach of under 25 India or senior India. But not everybody was in his ear, because he was young. He had just come out of UP. So he was vulnerable. He didn't know which one to take, which one not to. So the CAB took great care of him to make sure that he doesn't go to the wrong people. Not too much of information went to him. Straight away played for Town for a year, played for Mohun
Yeah.
Bagan, which is the number 1 club, played for under 23 Bengal. While playing for under 23, went to make this Bengal debut. played for India A the year later, played for India a year later. So his ascent has been phenomenal. Because that's what happens when you have that much of talent. Much like Mahendra Singh Dhoni, ascent has been so steep. Generally, it's a progression. You play up years of 23, and then you make your debut in Ranji Trophy in 2, 3 years there, and then you have a good season. Then maybe India A. It's a 5, 6 year process, even for some of the greatest that have played for India. But for Sami, because he was a fast bowler, which is such a rare commodity to have, he was quick. He could swing the ball, and he was naturally very good. He must have just seen people. Often, what happens is when you see good people, good actions, and you replicate them, you become good at it also. So naturally, he had 1 or 2 issues, and those were the only things that were worked on. Fitness was an issue that was worked on. He didn't understand how fitness helped his bowling, but once he did, now he's first in the gym and last guy out. So he's also a guy who's gone from strength to strength. But one thing is for sure, has a lot of natural ability.
No, indeed, and I think you talked about progression. In fact, the whole story of Debuta kind of keeping, getting him to stay at home reminds me of the story we shared about Shardul and Dinesh Lad and how that relationship flourished. Also, in the case of
Absolutely.
Shami, what's fascinating is its progression. Also, obviously, he's had quite a few setbacks in terms of injury, personal issues, and he's come back. And I think that is what shows character. That there's so much talent, but also how do you kind of come back? How do you have that resilience to make that comeback? I feel for the man that even during the T20 World Cup, he was, there was so much of unfortunate abuses hurled on him on social media just because of one game. But it's amazing to see how he kind of takes that in his stride. Good to see Kohli
I've had,
and the management
yeah,
back him.
I've had the privilege of knowing him closely, and one thing that I really like about him is nothing phases him too much. That's a
Right.
great quality to have when you play anything at this level. Anything you do as too high when he does really well. He doesn't get too low when he does. When it's not things are not going his way. Even in the tough times, personal, professional. There's a balance with him, and
Right.
that's what I think has held him in good stead. In spite of all that he's had, he's very sharp in his own way. He knows what to do. Now he knows that he's at the latter half of his cricket career, so fitness has become a huge issue, which it wasn't in the first half because he was naturally young and strong and everything else that comes with being young. But now he knows that he's got the younger lot coming up his own, and he knows his game now. He's very cricket smart, and that is something that has worked in his favor. A lot of people might not be smart in school, but when they enter a cricket field, I play with a lot of people. They're
Right.
not the smartest outside the cricket field, but on the cricket field, they're as smart as a knife, as sharp as a knife.
Yeah. And yesterday you mentioned that the bowlers kind of hang out together. They're a click, and
Yeah,
it kind of shows
yeah.
the rhythm, amongst the two or three of these fast bowlers. It shows, and hopefully that camaraderie works out for India because we will need. I mean, from India's perspective, India will need to bowl this unit out below 200. Hopefully, gets 30, 40, 50 runs lead idly, and hopefully second innings we have a better show. And before we end, from an Indian perspective, what's the score that you think India? I mean, that if clearly if South Africa gets a lead, the match probably gets difficult for India to pull back. But from an Indian perspective, what's the minimum lead that we would need to make a match out of this?
So just going back to what Anand looking nice in that pink T-shirt, lovely weather. We're in our jackets over here back in India.
I know.
But he was saying that 230 and the batsman. I mean, see, these are bowling friendly conditions. So this 223 is probably like a 350 on a decent weekend, and like a 500 on a Rajkot weekend. If I could
Right.
bring that. So always the runs you get depends on the pitch you're playing in. You can't have that. You can't say that. Okay, these are the amount of runs you need. Who's bowling and what pitch are you playing on are the two most important things on it.
Yeah.
So I still feel that India would not want to put even a 30, 40 run. Sometimes the lead is more mental than anything else. South Africa has to bat last on this pitch. They will have the pressure of batting to save a
Yeah.
test match or to win a test match. So they will have to go
And the
through with that.
series.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the series, exactly. This
Series.
is a
Yeah.
big one. Yeah, and the first time that India about to make history. So the pressure is all on them. So I wouldn't be too worried even if the lead went to 20 or 30 runs more, because what will be interesting to see is how the pitch plays in the next couple of days. That will also give us an indication of how the Indian batters should fare in the second innings. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get tougher? If it gets better, then you have a chance of making up. Okay, you won the toss, you batted, there was too much of moisture, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So this is where you are. You bowl them out for maybe they take a 20-run lead. Now, if it's eased out, you get 350. Now the ball's in your court. But if the pitch hasn't eased out and it's the same, then it's an open game. Then it's whoever's playing well, whose skill is better on that given day.
Absolutely. So, well, we're just about 10 minutes away from play. It's going to be a cracker. Cape Town, India has never won a test match here. It is very, very interestingly poised. We'll come back to you with more analysis from Anand, Joydeep, and myself at the end of the day. Enjoy the game and let's hope it's a good, well fought contest. Thank you. See you at the other side of the day.